Welcome back to Untaming Masculinity, a podcast where we tackle issues relevant to men and their journeys to reclaim their masculinity. I'm Dan, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host and good friend Brad. How are we doing tonight?
Good, man. I'm going to Mexico in a week. Really pumped up. Gonna get some beach time. I'm recording in my office at work today, so this is going to be kind of a different dynamic. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Got a couple of big projects going on right now. We're doing a kitchen reno at home, and I've got some interesting employee stuff going on that I was telling you about before. So been a fun day. Today, we wanted to get down and talk to a broader topic that we've kind of hinted at a few times here on the podcast. But what we wanted to get after was the concept of it's never too late to start. So, Brad, I'm going to throw it to you, let you kind of kick us off here, because I know this was something that you were kicking around in your head.
You know, we talk a lot about living life with no regrets. And sometimes when you're waxing poetic and you're reminiscing about what could have been, you think about, man, had I just done this or had I just done that? It's something that I think every guy is dogged by. And when it comes to any number of activities, whether that's trying to get your life in order, trying to get your physical fitness in order, starting a new hobby, starting a new career, the question a lot of guys always ask themselves, or the thought that they always have is, I can't do that. I'm too old for that. And I've been thinking a lot about that excuse lately. It's total bullshit. It's not too late to start anything. You know, I think a lot about you and how you're really tackling hunting head on. You know, you made that discovery in your late 30s. I started jiu-jitsu in my late 30s. Yeah, I mean, obviously, could it have been better had we started that 2 decades earlier? No, but going back to the old adage, best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So I guess, Dan, kicking it over to you, why do you think there are guys out there who are scared to start something?
Well, I'm going to back up. I'm not sure that it's scared so much as life gets in the way. And I hate that saying, but it's really the best way to describe it is that when we're kids, we are willing to pick up just about anything and try something new and explore and have fun and not really get too spun around the axle if things don't work out the way we want them to. But then as we age, go through school, we get married, we get house, kids, whatever, life happens. Our free time begins to dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. And all of a sudden, that limited free time you have, you want to do something that you know you're either A, good at, or B, really enjoy. And I know that for me, that meant I didn't have a lot of time to explore new things. I was working out, I was spending time with the family, I was working, obviously. And any free time I had, I wanted to spend in pursuits that I knew I enjoyed. Forget the whole benefited me thing, forget the whole improved me thing. This was even way before that came into my life. And what happened was I became very fixated on, I'd say, 2 or 3 things. One was sports in general, just watching sports, getting consumed by that. That took up a lot of time. And if you know me, you know that there's football and there's baseball and hockey has come on strong since I moved to New York and what we'll call extreme sports, snowboarding, stuff like that. I'll watch any of that stuff whenever it's on. That took a large amount of my time. And then working out, going out with friends, all of a sudden, I just had no time. Over the years, I realized that a lot of that stuff wasn't benefiting me. And as I got into the self-improvement phase, I started to realize that I needed to fill my time with better things. And that would require me to go out and start something new. And that was a scary proposition. I was a weightlifter. I was a sports guy. I was a snowboarder. And it's really tempting to call myself one, but I surfed. I'm not necessarily a surfer. And if you're a surfer, you understand what I'm saying. But I realized that I need to introduce new things into my life in order to kind of fulfill myself and to improve myself. So I pulled back on some of the things that weren't benefiting me. Spending Friday and Saturday night out with the crew, throwing back a few and having a good time, that didn't necessarily benefit me. It's not that I don't do it still on occasion, but I definitely pulled back from that. I also pulled back from watching sports on TV as much, and I got a mountain bike and I got into hunting. And those 2 things have really filled a lot of my time and allowed me to pursue new ventures, even at a later age. I mean, getting into mountain biking and hunting at the ripe old age of whatever it was, 38, 39, was painful to say the least, because they're both pretty punishing things to do. But moreover, it was scary to jump into something that was so new, so different, and so just against what my life had been up to that point. So back to your original question, I very much think that it's life happening and people or guys being comfortable that prevents them from jumping into something.
Comfort, man. That that word sticks with me. You think about all the things that you do that are comfortable. You like hanging out with your buddies. I mean, these things are fun, right? You enjoy hanging out with your buddies. You enjoy watching sports. You enjoy doing all of these things. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when it comes to moving the needle, as you grow and as you evolve as a man, you start to embrace discomfort. Some of these things that you want to do that you look back on, it's really easy, especially as you hit your mid 30s and you start to approach that whole idea of the midlife crisis. You really take a second to step back and say, what have I accomplished in my life? Where am I? What have I done? And sometimes that's filled with regret. And you start to make some decisions. Well, I wish I would have done that. I wish I could have done this. So many men have these limiting self-beliefs of, well, I can't do that because that's really hard. I could have looked at you and said, if I were you, I could have said, man, mountain biking looks really fun, but I'm too old for that shit. I'm not going to do it. Why? Like, it's too late. My window is past. My prime is over. Especially when you start to look at, these X Games caliber, Olympic caliber cyclists, their prime is when they're in their 20s. And if you start to look at it that way, it can be very deflating. But that goes against the grain and kind of defeats the purpose of what this self-improvement journey is all about. You're looking to be your best self. And it's really easy for guys to be dismissive of their best selves when they spend too much time comparing themselves to others. Yeah, I love jiu-jitsu. I'm not going to be Gordon Ryan. I love cycling. I am never, ever, 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 ever going to be anybody even close to Lance Armstrong, doping or not, right? Those are things that are never going to happen. I want to get into hunting and archery. I'm never going to be Cam Hanes. But that's okay. I can be the best Brad possible at any of those things. But the fact of the matter is, you simply have to take the action of starting.
You hit on two things in there that I really want to jump back to. First was you used the term embrace discomfort. There is a point in every man's life, and it happens somewhere in that mid-30s, early 40s range, where we start to question just about everything that's happened to us. I'm sure you've gone through it or are going through it. I definitely have, or am. I think there's a little bit of realizing our mortality in there. There's a little bit of realizing that we've spent multiple decades on this earth now, and what do we have to show for it? And there's a little bit of, I'm still young. I still got it, bravado mixed in there. But in this age, we begin to exactly what you just said, embrace that discomfort. And we begin to push towards doing things that are hard again. And for some reason, we put that down. When we're kids, we'll go out. I remember being a kid, and I would go out and I would ride my bike all over town, play baseball, go to the town park and swim in the town lake, and then do the same thing all over again the next day, burning God knows how many calories every day, being out in the sun. And it was exhausting, but it was super fun. And somehow we put down all of that. But then later on in life, we pick that back up again, or most guys do. And there's a challenge here. It comes down to, by the time you've hit your late 30s, your early 40s, I would say that most guys have found kind of their rhythm in life. I'm not going to say they're comfortable, because I know a lot of guys who aren't comfortable at that age. But you've found a place in life where you probably have a modicum of comfort. You found your rhythm, meaning that you kind of figured out who you are a little bit. You figured out where you fit in the world. You figured out what you need to do to survive on a regular basis. And for the most part, most guys, they're not struggling too. At that point, what are we reaching for, right? That's when this concept of embracing discomfort comes, and we start pushing. And that is where guys need to remember that it's never too late to start something. Because once you grasp onto the idea of embracing that discomfort, now you got to figure out how to get uncomfortable. And that, to me, was a hard thing to kind of hone in on and realize. It's once I started doing a couple of things that were really uncomfortable. Hunting for me, not because of the physical part involved in it. It is very physical, but hunting for me was very uncomfortable because it's something I had never done in my life. It's something no one in my family had ever done. It was not something that people in my friends group did, or my immediate local friends group, I'll say. but it was something that interested immensely for years and years. It took me a lot of effort, confidence, whatever you want to call it, to make that jump and actually start pursuing it. I fell in love with it. It's amazing. I still just take my bow or my rifle for a walk in the woods at this point, but the fact that I'm out there doing something that is so different than what I've done for the last 40 years still amazes me. The other thing you said that I want to kind of make a clarity point on is you mentioned that we don't have to be those A-level athletes, right? When we try these new things, we have to be our best self. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I agree with you 100%. The terminology, though, reeked of this body positive movement that's going on. And I
Fair
just want
enough.
to make sure that we're not on that page, right? When we talk
Yeah.
about being our best selves, we mean about pushing ourselves, and we mean about trying as hard as we can to get to that higher level. It's not simply accepting who you are and where you are and not working towards an improvement.
That's a really good call out. This isn't pizza day at Planet Fitness
Right.
and donuts for everybody. We all deserve pats on the back. We have to challenge ourselves. The entire time you were talking, there was one word that came to mind. I wrote it down, I typed it out, probably saw it. Legacy. Legacy comes to mind because we're talking about a lot of things that men in our age bracket go through. Hit your 30s, you start getting your 40s, and you really start evaluating where you are. A large part of that, I do believe, comes down to legacy. Most men in that age range are fathers. They're raising sons, they're raising daughters. And when you're raising your kids, you really spend a lot of time evaluating where you are, the decisions you've made in life. For a lot of men, that's a wake up call. I know for you it was a wake up call. I know for me it was a wake up call. Who do I want to be for my kids?
Mm-hmm.
Who do I want to be for my wife? We have one shot at this life, one chance. Once it's over, it's done. You're never coming back. What we can leave is a legacy. And oftentimes, it can be very easy to look at the legacy that you left and be filled with incredible regret. Why wasn't I a better reader? Why wasn't I a better man? Why didn't I serve in my community more? Why didn't I go to the gym often? Why didn't I pick up that hobby that I'd always wanted to do? Why didn't I pick up the guitar? Doesn't matter what that is. There's something that's going to be eating you, just gnawing at you, that you wish you could have done or wish you would have started. And the question becomes, why not start now? Would you rather be in a situation where you have to live feeling that way all the way to your grave? Or would you rather take the time to get after it? See if it's worth your while. See if you're like Dan, carrying your bow through the woods and getting real amped to hunt, even though you're in Long Island. Whatever that looks like, start it.
So I got a question here
Yeah.
regards to legacy and these big, hairy, audacious goals that we've got in life. When you think about the term legacy and you think about starting these tough challenges or these hard things later in life, whether it's hunting or mountain biking or jiu-jitsu or writing a book or pursuing an advanced degree at a later age, whatever that big scary thing is out there for you that you think I'm too old to start. How do you equate that to legacy, and what legacy are you looking to provide by doing those actions?
It's a great question. In my humble estimation, the legacy that you leave behind is this is the kind of man that I am. This is a man who embraces challenge. This is a man who does hard things. This is a man who's accomplished. One of the activities that has been recommended of us, I think most of us have heard of this, is writing your own obituary.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want that to say? When I think about legacy, I think about that. That day when I kick the bucket and I die and somebody has to write something about me, I want that to say, here's a man who never ran from challenge. Here's a man who did hard things. Here's a man who tried to be the best that he could be for his kids, who tried new things and showed them new adventures. In large part, the reason I do a lot of these things is to set a foundation of hard work, challenge, discipline for my kids, and hopefully their kids as well. I want them to know that I took on something new, that I conquered it, so that they can tell themselves that they can as well. I think about that a lot. I mean, that's not necessarily isolated to just being a father. I think if you're a guy who doesn't have any kids, what's the kind of legacy you want to leave behind for your loved ones? Like, do you want them to look at you and say, here's a guy who accomplished a lot of great things, who's willing to try things, who was willing to go above and beyond, or somebody who was complacent?
You hit the nail on the head there. I don't hunt or snowboard or mountain bike or do any of these things because I want my kids to do those things.
Yeah.
I would love it. I would love if one of my daughters one day said, "Hey, Dad, let's go, hunting," or "Hey, Dad, let's go on a trip to Jackson Hole," or something like that. What I do them for, first and foremost, I do them for me, which sounds selfish, but it's part of my self calibration. I enjoy these things. They help center me. They help give me peace and physical fitness, and have a lot of positive benefits to me. But from the legacy mindset, I do them to show my girls that the world is not small. The world is full of opportunity. It is full of things to do and adventures to have. And just because you're a little beat up, you're a little long in the tooth, whatever, you've experienced a little bit of life, doesn't mean that you can't have new adventures and you can't do new things and you can't learn things and you can't explore the world. I grew up in a very small town with parents who didn't travel much. I love my parents to death, and they were great parents, but they never pushed themselves to kind of explore how big the world really is. And I think the best thing that I did was move away from that hometown and see that the world is full of opportunity and full of different people and full of different things. And I've been lucky enough with work that I've been able to travel the world. I've been to Europe, I've been to Asia, I've been to a couple of other places where the exposure to just how much is out there has really affected my mindset and my ability to say, hey, listen, I might be 43 years old, but I can still learn and try new things and explore new things and have adventures and enjoy life. And that is the legacy that I'm trying to leave. I'm trying to show my kids that. I'm trying to show my wife that. I'm trying to show the rest of the people, in my circle, my friends and my family, that there is fun and excitement to be had no matter how old you are or where you're at in life. And you just need to go and seek it and try it.
Yeah. That idea of seeking it and trying it draws me back to our conversation with Father Michael a few weeks ago, and how he decided, here's a man who he's in the priesthood. He's lived a good life. He has a wife. He has kids. Mm-hmm. He obviously knows where he stands with God. And he still wanted to pursue bodybuilding at the age of 53, something that he tried for the very first time at 53 years old. How many men out there, when they're 53 years old, are going to say, you know what, I'm going to start bodybuilding? The fact of the matter is he did, and it's completely transformed his life. Here's a guy who has 99% of his life put together, you could argue. He's got so many ducks in a row, but he decided, you know what, this is something I really want to pursue, and I'm going to do it. And you know what that's done for him? It's made him a better man in the priesthood. I'm sure it's made him a better husband. We didn't necessarily talk about his relationship with his wife, but I'm sure it impacted that. Simply because he decided, you know what? I am not too old. I'm going to try this. I'm going to get started. And he's become successful. He's performed in meets. That's an incredible thing that so many people lose sight of, is there's this incredible world to see. How many men are just saying, you know what? I don't want to do it. I'm cool sitting on my couch watching football all day Saturday. I'm cool eating these Doritos. I'm cool, sizing up to my size 46 pants, simply because they're comfortable. They're complacent, because they're scared. How much of life is out there being left on the table because of complacency, because of fear, because of comfort?
The concept of fear and comfort is a strong one there. I'm sure you're kind of in the same boat, but fear and comfort are the two things that keep me from getting into new adventures the most. Fear of a lot of things. Fear of, will I be able to keep up? Fear of, will I be any good? Fear of, how do I afford this? Fear of, how's my family going to take it if I want some more time away from them? And comfort of, well, I have to travel to do that. Oh, I got to save up for that. Oh, I might have to take time away from other interests to do that. For me, those are the two hardest things to get over. They can almost be non-starters in certain situations. And I'm trying to think of the last situation where, it's just something as stupid as we're trying to put together a snowboard trip with my group of buddies who do one every year. And right now we're kind of arguing over whether we're going to stay on the East Coast or fly out west. And we've all got these crazy epic passes. So it's like our tickets are paid for no matter where we go. And it's simply a matter of getting there and getting lodging. Well, the lodging is probably going to be the same no matter where we get there. So am I going to drive to Vermont, or am I going to get on a plane and fly out your way somewhere? and just the concept of having to pack and get on a plane and deal with all that crap is a fear of sorts that's just getting in the way of me actually having a better trip. Guaranteed the snow and the terrain is better in Utah than it is in Vermont. Any day of the week, any day of the season.
It's pretty good out here.
So it's getting over yourself every once in a while and trying to bust through that fear. And it's a hard thing. Some of the techniques that I use, and we can get into it with you as well, but some of the techniques I use are literally, here's the engineer in me, writing things down, pros and cons on a piece of paper. As silly as it sounds, actually writing it out and seeing that my cons are either not really cons or just really stupid. Like really just like, okay, you're making excuses now. And that goes back, to our conversation on excuses. But they're not cons. They're not negatives for doing that action. They're excuses that I'm putting up to just not pursue it because it might be a little bit harder or it might be a little bit, more challenging. So I know we're probably going to try and give the guys a little bit of tactical advice here. The first one is figure out what's preventing you from doing it and whether it's real or it's something in your head that you're just making up to prevent you from even considering trying something new.
Yeah, those limiting self-beliefs they're a real thing. I know we talked about this before, but I joined an MMA gym in 2010, in my 20s. Maybe it's 2011. It's 2010 or 2011. And I joined with the idea of going to jiu-jitsu, but I ended up just doing a few boxing classes. And I got scared. I got scared because I knew I wasn't going to be any good. I got scared because it wasn't cheap to go to that gym at the time. And so what did I do? Gave up. And that's what so many men look at. You're coming back to your snowboard trip. There's the financial expense you have to weigh. There's the time consideration. And then there's the fact of the matter of, what if I do what I want to do and I'm not any good at it? Or what if I don't like it as much as I think I'm going to? Why start because I already think? So to go along with your point, you have to really identify the why behind that and identify and be aware of what that fear is, and have, as silly as it sounds, you have to have the courage to be able to push past that. Those limiting self-beliefs, that negative self-talk, that's never going to go away. You have to have the fortitude and the resiliency to push past that crap. It's not going to serve you.
Your comments there reminded me a lot of our talk with Clint, where we talked a lot about hobbies, and he had basically a fail fast mentality on them. He didn't use those words, but that's essentially what he was talking about. Was he'll try a hobby, he'll see if it serves him, and if it doesn't, he's out. Because when he's in, he's all in. So he's either in or he's out. There's no dipping your toe in the water, is a term that he used. And I would encourage guys to really have that mindset. The idea of investing in oneself and the idea of, will I suck at this or not, are two very big limiting mindsets that are tough to get over as well. They go back to fear. It goes back to that kind of stuff. But so what? Maybe you're not going to be good at it. Does it interest you? Try it. And don't just, but give it a fair shake too. If let's say you're going to try snowboarding for the first time, you've never tried it before, don't just rent a board, go to the top of the mountain and see if you can ride down. Like, take the lesson, get the intro package and give it a fair shot. There's no shame in that. And there's also frankly, there's a certain stupidity in just going balls in with no plan of attack on learning how to do it correctly. So invest in yourself a little bit is what I'm getting at. Invest in yourself in terms of the lesson or a mentor, or even if it's just time for research, do it.
That investment in time is huge. It's really easy to say, yeah, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to be hard. The reality of it is, whatever you try now, whatever it is, learning the guitar, going into an MBA program, getting into something like snowboarding or cycling or archery, it's going to be harder now than if you started at 18, period. So what? Recognizing that going into it is going to serve you. Get over your ego. We as men, it's really easy to get that ego inflated, thinking we still got it, thinking we're going to be able to go in and dominate. We're not. right? I go roll jiu-jitsu with dudes who are 18, and it's unbelievable that those dudes have ridiculous stamina. They're strong as hell. They keep going, a 6-minute round, and they're just going. And you're like, how are you doing this, man? You're going to suck at it. Get past the ego and be okay with that. Give yourself the appropriate amount of time to really understand if that's something that you want to do and something you want to pursue. An MBA at 45 is going to be a hell of a lot harder than an MBA at 22. And that's okay. If you know that going into it, and if you can be realistic enough with yourself, you shake your head, but it's true. You're not going to have that same sort of studious mindset.
The reason I'm shaking my head at that one is because at 45, you've got 25 years of business experience to rely on going through your MBA. At 22, you haven't worked in the real world at all, and you've got no practical experience. So that particular example, I tend to disagree with you.
All right, fair enough. Ultimately, you're going to suck. As long as you can get your ego out of the way and recognize that you are going to suck and you're okay with that, that's going to give you a fair shake to be able to be successful.
Giving yourself a fair shake is paramount. And the other thing that I'll add to that is fail fast. We do have limited time. As much as we like to say, oh, I'm not going to try something new because I have limited time. It is the truth. We have limited time. That should not preclude you from trying something new. But you have to be responsible to yourself, where if you try something and you give it an honest shot, not some half-ass, dipping my toe in the water to see if it's warm kind of shot, but a full-on, I'm going to go full out with this. Clint mentioned jiu-jitsu, right? He went for his first class. He had already guaranteed himself that he was going to go twice a week for 3 months and give it a fair shake. That's the kind of mentality that we're talking about. Have enough time invested in it to give it a fair shake, but also be willing to fail fast and be honest with yourself. If after a fair amount of time you say, you know what, this just isn't for me. Either I'm not good enough at it to enjoy it and I don't see myself improving, it actually just doesn't fulfill me, or there's other reasons that just would preclude me from totally enjoying this time-wise or something like that. Be willing to walk away, but don't be scared to try something because one of those things might happen. Get over the fear.
Living a life of fear is paralyzing. You could tell stories of fear and how it paralyzed you. I could tell stories about how it paralyzed me. Let's just put it this way. When I was 25 years old, I was dating a girl that I thought was way out of my league. And I was completely overweight. I weighed about 275 pounds. I was not exercising. I was kind of gliding my way through college in cruise control. And I remember we had a friend's Christmas gift exchange. And this was the first wake-up call in my life to where I realized I was scared of trying new things. If anybody knows me, one thing to understand about me is I've been an overly obsessive Utah Jazz fan. Yeah, laugh it up, whatever. Michael Jordan pushed off, okay? Fact of the matter is, growing up here, I love basketball, and I recognized that Christmas, my friend who did the gift exchange with me, all they got me was Jazz stuff. That was it. Like, they put in a lot of thought for the other gifts they got for other people, got them various things. And I asked her the question that day. It's like, you think of me as all you think of the Jazz? She's like, well, yeah. And it made me realize that as a guy, I had become very comfortable in just being that, just kind of skating by in cruise control. I hadn't pushed myself simply because I was scared. I liked basketball. I liked eating. I liked hanging out. That was my life. And as men, how often is that the case with us? That, yeah, those things are good. I like food. I still like the Jazz. Like, they had media day today. They're not going to be very good. That's okay. But how much of my life was dictated by comfort, fear? I didn't try anything hard because it was scary. I didn't go out there and fail fast in any way because I didn't want to fail at anything. Because I didn't fail at anything, I was succeeding at nothing. And I look back now, and I look back on Brad 12 years ago, and he was a good guy, but I feel sorry for him. I'm glad for the growth that I've taken since that point. And I mostly feel sorry for him because of living a life paralyzed by fear, because he was too scared to fail at anything. So he's miserable.
The concept of being afraid of failure is something we should probably dig into in a podcast all its own. But it's very important with regards to this concept of never too late to start. Because how many guys, to your point, just are too afraid to even figure out what the first step is. The guy who is always liked the outdoors but might be overweight and is going, I'd love to do a long distance hike. Not even the whole Appalachian Trail or something like that, but just
Or even like an overnight backpacking trip.
whatever it is. But he's afraid to even just go out to his local park and walk a couple miles through the woods because he's that out of shape. Or the guy who, I don't know, this is a weird example, but a guy who is, been recently widowed and is finally ready to go back on the dating market, but is afraid just because it's been so long since he's had to talk to a woman and go into those situations, that he's afraid to just put himself out there and be vulnerable and be open to new examples or new experiences. And it's just unwilling to start just because he's frozen by fear. That really hit home. Like, for some reason, that's really just catching me and getting me to think about, how do we get guys to work through that? The first step to me is at least recognizing that exists in you. It exists in me, definitely in certain situations, mostly social, because they're areas where I tend to fail the most. Experiencing new things is so important to living a full life, and experiencing new adventures and starting new hobbies and experiences in life is just, it's critical to becoming a better man. And the fear that we all carry around about one thing or another, we need to find ways to remove that from our life to get started.
And that can be easier said than done.
I think it's much easier said than done.
It simply takes a conscious decision to act. There comes a point where anybody who lives a life filled with fear makes the decision, I don't want to live this way anymore. And that can be said for anybody when it comes to starting anything. I don't want to be like this anymore. I want to do something different. Oftentimes that's enough to get you to take that first step. And if you can get that first step out of the way, the next step becomes a whole lot easier. The next one's easier than that. And you just keep going. And it opens up doors.
Yeah, it's that concept of simple, not easy, though. Right?
Yeah.
It is a very simple solution to the problem. By no means are we claiming that it's an easy solution. It takes a lot of getting yourself going, a lot of backbone, a lot of gumption, whatever you want to call it, to put that first foot out there.
We talk about this a lot. I mean, we've talked about this in several episodes. We talked about your pack and making sure you have your guys' backs. One of the critical components to being able to take those initial steps is having a buddy, having a brother, somebody in the trenches with you, somebody you can confide in. If you share what you're really trying to accomplish with somebody, that first step becomes so much easier. It is very, very, very hard to do that on your own. But if you've got somebody there that you can confide in and tell them, hey, look, I'm looking to do this, they can hold you to it a little bit, that can get you going.
It could also be your wingman.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever it is, whether you need this buddy to go backpacking with you, you need a buddy to go snowboarding or whatever it is, get somebody out there, get somebody to do it for you. You don't have to do it alone.
Getting yourself out there. I mean, some of those limiting self-beliefs come down to you don't think you're good enough for a relationship, or, fear of trying something, that it's too late. That's a really good example. You get out of it. We have lots of friends who've gone through divorce, who are going through divorce, and they're back on the market. It's something they have to think about.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a buddy who's never been married, and he's constantly struggling to talk to girls, and it's always a conversation I have with him. There's going to come a point where you're so petrified of trying to have conversations with girls that you're going to end up being alone. There's going to come a point that you can't do it anymore. You can't do being alone with just you and your dog at your house anymore. You're going to do something about it.
In terms of tactical advice, I've got 3 things written down. Let's see if you can add it to this. One is invest in yourself. Be willing to spend time, research, money, whatever it takes to kind of find these things that give you these new adventures in life, no matter where you're at, no matter what age you are, no matter at what point in life you're at. Second was fight through the fear. Spent a lot of time talking about that. This is one of those things that's simple but not easy, and you need to really kind of push yourself to get over that hurdle, that initial fear of, am I going to fail? Am I going to enjoy it? Is it going to bring me happiness? Am I going to be rejected? Whatever those fears are, get over them, move through them. Use a wingman if you can. And then the other one is fail fast, but with an honest effort. Go out there, give everything an honest effort. It's not all going to stick, but if it interests you, give it a try and give it long enough to make that honest assessment.
I think as an addendum to fail fast is if it's something that you are interested in or passionate about, or feel compelled to keep doing, giving it that honest effort is huge. If you're going to undertake something like jiu-jitsu, it's going to kick the living crap out of you for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
You can't give up. You're going to have days that are very discouraging. If you pick up a snowboard, snowboarding, yeah, there's a pretty steep learning curve, right? It's going to take some time to get proficient at it. If you get the itch and you love it, giving it that honest effort's key. Don't give up before the fruits come from it, or else you're going to be regret.
That's the important point too. And each one of those things. Now, I don't do jiu-jitsu, but I imagine there is this moment too. But with snowboarding, with mountain biking, with all of these things, even school or writing, whatever, we tend to hone in on the physical stuff. But there is a moment where you get over the hump and you get this moment of clarity, this moment of it's still hard, but it's not difficult anymore. And all of a sudden, I can ride my snowboard down a black diamond. Now, I'm not going to, be Shaun White, but I can ride any trail at the resort. I can get on my mountain bike and ride any trail in our system. I'm not going to win the Red Bull downhill contest or anything, but I can go out and I can have a good day and enjoy myself. And then it's just not hard anymore. I'm sure the same thing with jiu-jitsu. All of a sudden you're rolling around with a white belt and you're like, I know what I'm doing. And they don't. Like, that there's got to be that moment of just things slow down, things get a little bit easier. You got to give yourself enough grace to get to that point. And that's when you should be making the assessment of whether that thing serves you or not.
And part of the concept of failing fast is, if you have identified something, you're just going to know.
Mm-hmm.
Part of that concept is, yeah, it might be hard, but you feel it. You feel that passion, you feel that enthusiasm, so you're going to keep after it. Or you don't.
Yep.
And if you don't, it's okay to step away. Yep. Try something different. Continually push yourself.
Well, awesome, man. I enjoyed this. This was an interesting conversation. Definitely a little different than what we've been talking about lately. So, as always,
yeah, agreed.
I appreciate you. Looking forward to having more conversations like this with you in the future. To the guys that are listening, we really appreciate you guys listening. You've been more and more of you have been listening lately, so that's great to see. I'd like you to go and visit the website. It's untamingmasculinity.com. There you will find the show notes for this and all of our other podcast episodes. You'll also find links to us on social media and other places where you can get in touch with us. The other thing that we're asking you guys to do, and this really helps us get the word out to other people, other guys, and get our message out there, is leave us a rating and review. Go into your podcast player. If you loved it, leave us 5 stars. If you hated it, leave us 1 star. But leave that review too. Let us know what you liked or didn't like about it, because that really helps us mold and shape these episodes and give you guys what you're looking for. That's it for now. Brad, thanks again, man. Great conversation. To the fellas that are listening, make sure you come back next week. And until then, we'll leave you with just one question. What are you doing to untame your masculinity?